Everybody, welcome back for take two of the conversation between Alex and I on how to improve at pull-ups, how to get stronger at pull-ups, increase your pull-up numbers. I told you yesterday, Alex, that I was not going to air our previous episode, and I didn't tell you exactly why, but the truth is I re-listened to it, which is something I almost never do. Mm-hmm. But God in his providence was watching after me, and I heard this most disgusting noise, and I don't know if you heard it and you didn't point it out, but every time I took a sip of my coffee, did you hear that on the episode? There's no way anybody could have listened to that and not immediately unsubscribe from this podcast forever. And it wasn't just once. So whatever was going on with my microphone, it picked up this disgusting slurping noise anytime. And I'm a weird coffee drinker. I do this like little weird, like I suck in air before I drink it. So we've already spent too much time on this. The point is I was too embarrassed to let anybody sit through that. And the worst part was it was when like you were talking and describing the program and you would just hear it's like, and I'm like, all right, I know we don't have like Hollywood production quality here, but I had to give the axe on that one. And that's rare. Yeah. I almost never do that, mostly because I don't want to waste people's time, but it's Alex, so we can do it again.
Right, exactly. I don't care if we waste his time.
So what's up, my man, since yesterday? What's going on?
Well, I got to say, not a whole lot. What did I do? I finished up some ad copy for a couple of workshops that I'll be doing in Australia on the topic of bodyweight training.
Plug it.
Yeah, very excited about this workshop. It's going to be in February 15th in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, and then also February 22nd in Newcastle, Australia, which I believe is also in Queensland. But because I am an American, I'm not good at geography. I actually don't know. I'm pretty sure it's in Queensland. But it's going to be great. I mean, it's basically what I've taught in the past, but with a lot of new adjustments based on things that I've seen, stuff that I've practiced and tried out. And a whole lot more material. So it's a lot of fun. And the ad copy really took ages because I'm using the method that Ben Settle teaches in one of his books called Copy Slacker. And awesome method. But previously, everything I'd ever done was all just really haphazard in terms of writing ad copy. It was kind of just like what I had seen other ads doing. In this case, it was a lot more in-depth. And I had to, kind of internalize what it was I was supposed to be doing. So it probably took longer than it should have, but I think it turned out quite well. And
that's part of the mastery process. And you have a background in writing, and it just goes to show that you can be a great writer, but know nothing about copywriting. I'm not saying that isn't you. I think you're a great copywriter as well, but they are two different skills. Because one is not just about understanding grammar and syntax, but it's really selling in print, and that is an entirely different skill than just being able to think in straight channels and convey ideas clearly. Yeah, we should maybe do an episode. I know every once in a while we do a business team episode. Maybe we should do a copy episode at some point in the future.
I'd love to.
If anybody is interested in that. Actually, that reminds me. Last episode, the one that I nixed, I did promise some giveaways. So why don't we mention that again? I have boxes full of the galley copies of my book, How to Be Better at Almost Everything, down here in my dungeony basement. And if I don't give them away, they're just going to collect cobwebs. So let's see, like and comment, like the video and comment something, a question, topic, suggestion, or I don't know, something interesting about yourself or your pet, if you have one, or email me if you're listening on iTunes, patflynn@chroniclesofstrength.com. And just topic suggestions and questions are always best because that gives us something that we can jam on. But whatever, I got books I want to give away. I know I want to take care of you, gentle listeners. So I don't know. I'll pick like 3 to 5. So if you want to sign copy, if you already have a copy, I'll sign this for you. This was the pre-release version. It's obviously going to be worth way more than Furbies and Pokemon cards or any of that stuff. So you can add it to
no question.
Millions upon millions touched by my hands. So yeah, cool. How to Be Better at Almost Everything.
It's a good book, folks.
You made the cut. Like I said, we mostly just had a bunch of trash to talk about you, but Alex is in this book.
There was one nice thing said about me. Said Alex is not as ugly as many say.
He's not as dumb as he looks, folks.
Not even
just close.
I think that
Which is
was
funny
the
because I said that about myself in the last episode. So the retake is not in your favor.
right, exactly. Yeah, I thought we had to kind of spice it up a little bit, you know?
Good stuff. Okay, so let's rehash our conversation and pretend like we never had this before. But we wanted to talk about improving pull-up strength. This will be the pull-up episode. And I suggested last time that we talk about what to do when you can already do like at least one pull-up and you want to be able to do more pull-ups or heavier pull-ups, because that's quite different than if you're going from 0 to 1.
Mhm.
And isn't that a truism that to go from nothing to something is often a lot more difficult to go from something to even better or even great. And
Yeah.
to get your first pull-up, you often have to be kind of creative in your programming, because it's that paradox, right? How do you get better at pull-ups? Well, by doing pull-ups. Well, what if I can't do pull-ups? Well, practice pull-ups. It's like, well,
Right.
thanks for all the help, Joker. That's not helpful at all. But let's just start briefly there, because we ended up getting into that anyways. And you talked about the importance of being creative, using isometrics, using negatives. So for the people who are struggling to get that first rep, what's the Aleks Salkin method? How do we get over that initial hurdle?
Yeah, so I've helped a number of people get to a first rep of a pull-up, and the people that I've helped in general have not been like super stud athletes who just kind of could not figure out the pull-up. You know, many of them were people who had day jobs or were business owners. And in some cases, there was one, actually the first person I ever helped to get to a pull-up was a 50-year-old lady. And she was an executive for a local TV. Well, she worked locally, but she was in charge of, I think, like 4 different TV stations throughout the U.S. So like super high stress job. And I still helped her to get to her first pull-up, and I've used similar methods with others. And a big part of it is there are a couple things that you just kind of can't get away from. So if you want to do pull-ups, it's true you have to practice pull-ups. And in order to do that, first you have to kind of lay down a basic foundation of strength. And so there are going to be elements, basically with any exercise, there are elements to that exercise that you can break it down even smaller with. Like even if you think of like an atom, right? An atom has a couple of different elements within it that even like the smallest known thing in the universe has different elements within it that you can look at individually. So the same thing goes with exercises and with pull-ups. Because you are going to be hanging from something overhead, whether it's gymnastics rings or a pull-up bar is actually ideal if you're just learning. There's a hang. There are 2 types of hangs. There's the dead hang at the bottom where your arms are straight. And then there's the flex arm hang at the top where your arms are bent and your chin, at the very least your chin, is over the bar. And then in between that, you've got the lowering phase where you're lowering from the flexed arm hang into the dead hang. And you also have the raising phase, which is like basically that's the point at which you've made it. You've done your first pull-up. Now, before you do that, you're going to need a modicum of strength. And part of that, I would say, you would begin with the dead hang. So if you can hang at least for a minute, I would say. For a minute, I think you've got a far better canvas to work with. If it's only 30 seconds, you can still make it happen, but you know, you still might have like a bit of a weak spot. And a minute, I think, is something that just about anybody can work up toward. And then you also have to have a certain amount of back strength to begin with. And one of the best ways to do that is with rows. And rows can be done with kettlebells. They can be done with dumbbells. They can be done with a TRX unit or gymnastics rings. They can be done in a whole wide variety of different ways. But doing that is basically going to help make sure that your back muscles, which are supposed to be doing the vast majority of the work in a pull-up, are going to be up to the task of changing the direction in which you're pulling. Because rows are going to be what's known as a horizontal pull. So the pull is, it's coming from around chest level, and you're bringing something from at an arm's length at around chest level to closer to your chest, right? Could be the rib cage, even maybe the belly button, but in essence, that's what we're working with. And once you've done that and you've spent enough time doing rows and dead hangs, sometimes it's even very helpful for people to do them, like to alternate them. So you do maybe instead of a couple seconds of the dead hang, do a few rows, that sort of a thing. Next stage would be to work on a flexed arm hang. And that just means, again, holding your chin over the bar, just getting used to that position. At least initially when you're doing these hangs, it might make more sense to do them while you're fresh, because this is going to take a bit more strength and to some degree than than the rows. And this is especially true for the flexed arm hang. So you probably don't want to mix it up with like a really tough circuit right off the bat. It'd be something you'd want to work towards so that your body's kind of getting the feel for the gaps that it's about to fill in. So you've got these different elements of the pull-up, right? Like the hanging, the lowering, and then the lifting phase. The lifting phase, of course, is going to come last. And so once you've got these filled in, you've got enough confidence and you've reached a couple of standards. So we'll say, again, for the dead hang, a minute is a pretty good, maybe a little ambitious, but it's a good standard. For flexed arm hang, I would say 15 seconds is an absolute minimum would be what you'd want to aim for.
Yeah, that's a solid starting plan. And the one thing I would like to also address is a lot of people use assistance with pull-ups, which can be helpful. But we want to make sure that if we're using assistance, whether we're using bands or machines, a couple things. Sometimes the assistance is applied at the wrong spot. You have to be careful of that. So sometimes somebody might be very weak at the top where you're getting the least amount of assistance from the band. And that's a problem, right? So just be aware of that and how you're dealing with that. But assistance can be useful, but you need to register your own body weight sooner rather than later. Yeah. And that's why spending at least an equal amount of time on these, the three sort of ways to work up to the full concentric pull-up. One, Aleks highlighted two of them, but I want to throw in a third, would be flexed arm hangs or isometrics, just holding various positions of the pull-up, specifically where you're weak, right? So if you know you've got a weak spot, just try and hold wherever that is. You can use a chair or a stool to help you up, or even just a partner, just, with the old like kick them up over the wall type of assist.
Yeah.
Negatives, eccentrics, slowly controlling through the downward portion of the exercise. Aleks, you can go on your spiel about that here again in a minute. Cool. He had some nice things to say about that in the previous episode that I want reiterated. The other thing that I think is quite helpful is the use of partial reps. Now, sometimes people freak out, oh, you should always do full range of motion. Well, sometimes partial reps are a good way to work up to doing full range of motion exercises. They can be a really helpful training tool. So maybe you lower a little bit and you can just do partials, and then you lower a little bit more and do another partial. And then over time, you'll lower all the way down and perform a complete full rep. So the isometrics, the eccentrics, and the partial reps are a really, really powerful training tool. If you want to get to that first pull-up as quickly as possible, yes, assistance work can be worked into that and can be helpful, but you do need to register your body weight sooner rather than later. Aleks, the thing we skipped over that we talked about last time is just making the case for the pull-up in general. Mm-hmm. And very quickly, again, I think most people listening to this are probably sold on the coolness of pull-ups and the utility. But pull-ups are great because you have to have a lot of ducks in a row to be able to do at least a fair amount of pull-ups, right? You have to have, like Aleks said, decent grip strength. You have to have pretty good back strength, pretty good arm and bicep strength. You're probably not massively overweight. I mean, you could be a little overweight and still do pull-ups. We've seen that. And I suggested that pull-ups can also be something of like a body fat measuring device in a sense that if you're gaining weight and your pull-ups are going up, you're probably mostly gaining strength and muscle. Whereas if you're gaining weight and your pull-ups are going down, it's probably the holiday season and you're just, know. But so lots of utility there. It's a great bang for, it's an awesome exercise in and of its own right. But you kind of have to have this convergence of different useful physical attributes and abilities to be able to really do pull-ups and do them well. So anything you want to add to that before we continue on? Good, sir.
Yeah. One thing I would say is that regardless of what a lot of people's goals are, when it really all breaks down to, and I think it might've been Dan John who said this. I know a lot of other people have pointed this out, but people want to look good naked, there are very few people who don't want to look a little better. Now they might not want to look like, a professional bodybuilder or anything like that, but people want to look like they work out. Everybody likes looking in the mirror and liking what they see.
Seeing a little vein here or there.
Absolutely. A little vein, a little extra, bulge of muscle, under their armpit in terms of their, their back strength. And when it comes to building a body that looks like, I hate to use the word functional because it's garnered some sort of weird kind of cultish.
It's like the term clean eating, but look, we're all adults. We all know what Aleks means by it. So go ahead, Aleks.
Exactly.
Reclaim the term.
I am going to reclaim the term. I'm taking it back.
Mm-hmm. You're here now.
A body that looks functional, it can really
it can do stuff, it doesn't suck.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not a weird Frankenstein collection of parts, then you have to train it the way that it was made to move. And there's no question that brachiation, or basically hanging from something overhead, as well as all the things that go with it, climbing and pulling yourself upward, is a very important part of that. And so doing pull-ups is something that we are just made to do. The fact that it's going to help strengthen your back's going to look awesome. Your arms are going to look great. It's really going to work on your abs, believe it or not, just because having to control your legs is going to do a lot to develop your midsection. There's a lot that goes along with it. And so even if you don't really care about doing a whole bunch of pull-ups, you probably care about the way you look. You probably care about, you don't want to just look like you can do some stuff and then find out like, oh man, I couldn't even pull myself up, even though I've got, big arms or like a well-developed back or things like that. You actually want to have the ability to be you don't want to be all show, no go, regardless of what your goals are. So
yeah,
pull-ups not only help that, but they help to move the shoulders the way that they're made to move. They help the body to function the way that it's made to. And because we do a lot of stuff, particularly if you like kettlebells, it's like most of the kettlebell moves that we really like presses and get-ups and snatches and stuff like that, they're overhead. And so there's a lot of overhead compression. So overhead decompression, which you'd get from hanging or from pull-up work, is the perfect complement to it. So if you want to get better at kettlebell training while staying healthy and still getting strong, pull-ups are an absolute must.
Absolutely, my friend. Okay, let's reiterate the plan we detailed last time. So let's say you can already do a pull-up. Maybe you can do a few pull-ups. You really want to get properly strong at pull-ups now. You want to be able to do a good number. So here's a sort of general framework that I've used for a while, and I'm no pull-up slouch. We talked about this last time. The last time I tested my max of pull-ups, which wasn't all that long ago, my friend Levi was talking a bunch of smack because he's a climber. So he's like, all right, let's go. And granted, very few people probably give him a run for his money in the pull-ups. He got to 27. I got to 31 with at least one or two more in the tank, but I just wanted to make sure the embarrassment was complete. And then I had enough. And we're talking good full pull-ups. Could I do that right now on the spot? I don't know. I could at least hit 20 to 25. I need the competition and some extra coffee, and that we'll get to. But the point, and I can chin a really good amount of weight. I've been able to do the beast, weighted pull-ups. So part of that we said before is everybody has natural aptitude to certain exercises. I definitely have that for pull-ups. There's other exercises that I just won't even do because it's too embarrassing. Mm-hmm. You put me on the bench press, forget about it, right? But oddly enough, my dips are really strong. So, but then again, I also really don't bench press either. So it's just sort of a lack of practice.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you want to get good at pull-ups, both being able to chin and pull, and by the way, I'm using chin in a loose sense. Sometimes we say chin-ups, we mean palms are supinated facing you, pull-ups, palms pronated facing away. And then, you have mixed grips and ring grips where you might start pronated, go supinated, whatever. We can talk about that later. Here's what I recommend. Let's get right to it. I have found enormous utility from having one really heavy day per week of pull-ups. And when I mean really heavy, I mean, Alex, can you hear that circus that's going on upstairs right now?
No.
Listen, everybody. Okay. I'm just trying to be aware of what my mic is absorbing. It sounds like there's a WWE match with my children.
Well, I feel like I'm missing out because I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, I know. Somebody's getting smashed with a pillow when I go upstairs. I went in on that. Okay, one really heavy day. And when I mean really heavy, I mean 5 reps or less, and you're pushing the intensity. You're weighting the pull-ups. So if you can already do at least some number of pull-ups. Alex, you said maybe you get to 10 before you weight. I don't know what the number is, but you can do some body weight pull-ups. So now we're going to start adding some external load and intensity. And the reason this is important is, like we said in previous podcasts, the more absolute strength you have, the more capacity you have for endurance and further reps. Now, you still have to fill that capacity. But, I mean, this is common sense, right? The person who can bench 500 pounds is going to be able to bench 135 pounds way easier than the person who can only bench 225 pounds, for example, right? Absolute strength has its advantages. So we want to have one day where we really focus on just increasing limit strength. And the best way to do that, low reps, lots of load. We can talk about specifics moving forward. Then I have a volume day at a moderate intensity. Maybe I'll weight these, but only lightly. And it's really just focusing on density, getting a lot of reps in a certain amount of time. And here's where things like accumulation sets work really well. And you could do circuits and complexes too. On Friday when I was with the old crusher, and somehow, oddly enough, my trainer has been getting trained by me. Whatever, it's a weird thing. We would do, this is a kind of cool little circuit people can try. We would, pull-ups were stagnant. I was at 6, she did 2 or something like that. Then we would push the sled and then do a set of snatches. And we just put that on repeat for like 30 minutes. Fantastic workout, got a ton of pull-up volume in. So that would be sort of a volume day for me, and you can incorporate that with other things. And then the last thing I recommend is some type of habit of greasing the groove. Mm-hmm. Maybe you have a pull-up bar in your bedroom or bathroom door, and anytime you walk, put it in a busy place, someplace you visit frequently. And anytime you walk past that, you have to do something on that bar. Maybe it's just hanging. Maybe it's a couple reps of pull-ups. Maybe it's a flexed arm hang. Maybe it's a variation of pull-up, but you're doing something. Practicing frequently some type of pull-up variation, or just pull-ups themselves, and doing it when you're very fresh. You're not trying to get tired. You're not trying to have a whole bunch of density. It's just pure practice. So heavy day, volume day, and then frequent greasing the groove, practicing throughout the week, I think is the minimum effective dose to being a pull-up monster. Sir, your embellishments are now welcome.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty hard to beat system, because you need, if you want to get good at pull-ups, I mean, there's two basic things you need to be good at. And when we talk about good, we mean like respectable, right? Not just like bare minimum. So you do need to be able to do a lot of reps, and you also need to be able to do heavy reps. Like, for example, for me, like, I've never really been very good at higher rep pull-ups, but I've been good at like low rep heavy stuff. Like, I've worked up to a 97-pound pull-up. I think the only reason I didn't do more is I worked out in a park, and I just didn't have the ability to bring any more weight with me. And that was my max. And, but having both ends of that spectrum is going to make sure that not only that you are, well, one, getting good at pull-ups overall, but two, you're not overemphasizing just one or the other. So you should be able to ideally do a lot, as well as do them very heavy. And I really like the grease in the groove idea too, because I think a lot of times people kind of pigeonhole themselves into like, well, Monday and Thursday are my upper body pulling days, so that's all I'm going to do. Pull-ups are one of those things that, because your body's made to do them, and also because it's body weight in particular, like it is possible to do too many, but odds are, if you are focusing in on a day like a volume day and a day like a heavy day, and then just some light practice, particularly focused on the technique and really perfect execution, it's really hard not to get better at pull-ups.
Yeah. And that's a good point. You tend to recover from pull-ups pretty quickly. It's not like really heavy deadlift or squatting sessions. Pull-ups lend themselves pretty well to a higher frequency approach.
This is true actually with anything body weight related. Now, the one exception I would say would be if you're going really heavy with the weighted ones. You don't want to overdo that. Because you'll still feel a bit more fatigue, and I don't think it's going to be as much as with the barbell. Barbell seems to induce a lot of nervous system fatigue.
Yeah, because you're not just loading a whole bunch of weight right on the stanchion of your skeleton. It's actually the opposite. You're getting a large decompression effect. But no, you're right. It's like, maybe give some space around the head, like the really heavy days. Like if you're going to have an off day, right after the heavy day would probably be most appropriate for that. Yeah. And with the heavy day, you don't need to do a lot of volume. So like something very simple, like 2 1 to 5 ladders would be just fine, just perfect. Yeah. So just really high quality, intense reps. You don't need a ton of them. Keep the reps low. Just get the intensity up, and you'll be amazed at how much that carries over.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I would even say, if you're I think I have heard, there's a coach that I follow, and I think he said even that, like, you don't need to do, if you're doing weighted pull-ups, you don't need to do more than 30 in a weighted pull-up session, meaning like that's a good overall, like if you feel like you could do a lot more, maybe you're not going heavy enough. And if you are doing less, you're depending on how few, I mean, like if you only do one, like, well, maybe you're testing yourself. Right. But yeah, I would say anything from like, let's say 9 to about 30, depending on how heavy you're going, is about right.
Yeah, I think so. And you mentioned standards. It's worth reiterating. We did talk about that before. I think we settled last time, like most men probably be able to do around like 10 pull. Like if you want to hang out with Pat and Alex, like the minimum here.
If you want to buy us beers.
Yeah. And like, not like, it's not gonna be like intimate or one-on-one, like with a group of people, right?
Sure.
You haven't earned that yet. At least 10 pull-ups.
Bare minimum.
To like really be like our best friend.
Our very
I don't know,
best friend.
man. Yeah, our very best friend.
Well,
That's
let's put it this way. Levi earned it because he can do 27.
That's right. So
He gets
Levi
the-
gets the special privileges
So
of sometimes occasionally getting a text message returned from Pat or Alex.
Correct. Yeah. Like we'll leave him on red in basically every other circumstance. So the number to beat is 27.
Yeah. To maybe someday be considered invited possibly to one of our hangout sessions.
Right.
But yeah, if you want to be seen with us in a crowd of people, like a big crowd, and for us to drink a beer that you purchase, minimum 10 for most men. And I think we said somewhere between 3 to 5 for most women.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think that's a reasonable stand. Like you're going to have to work for it, right? You know, that's something that isn't just going to like be available to anybody just because they live and breathe. So you have to work for that. But that's a pretty reasonable standard, I think.
I agree. Perfectly reasonable.
Okay, well, is that it? I don't want us to go on forever here. Any final thoughts, conclusions here? I mean, that's like, let's not complicate it. Like, if you follow that protocol and you don't get better at pull-ups, then I know you're a liar.
Yeah.
Then I know you're a liar. That's as simple as that. Like, you just didn't do it. You just didn't follow that protocol. There's no way that you have a good heavy session, a volume session, and just frequent practice, and you don't see your pull-up numbers improve. So at this point, it's just a matter of commitment, getting it done.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, the other thing is give it a few months too, because I'm like anybody, I get afflicted with exercise ADD periodically, but pull-ups are the sort of a thing that you can always find a way to make them interesting, and you can find a way to make them, like exciting to practice. So I think just practicing them on their own, I'm a big fan of doing it, but you have to kind of stick with it for a few months. Like, to give you an example, the 50-year-old gal that I helped achieve her first pull-up, this is the first pull-up of her life, by the way. She wasn't like some, gymnast in her youth and needed to get it back. She had never done it before. After like a fair amount of time of working on like the basic levels of strength she was going to need to earn the right to start training the pull-up, it took maybe 2 or 2.5 months before she nailed it. And that was, and even with her, it was only like twice a week that we would do some practice. It was like first 10 or 15 minutes of our sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And, like a little dab will do you if you're training intensely, and it doesn't really matter what your age is. All that matters is your excuses. And if you got them, you're going to fail. If you don't, welcome to the club.
Look, every excuse you make will always come true, my friends. I promise you. Alex Salkin, check him out over at the Hammercast and alexsalkin.com.
Woo!
Woo! And remember, friends, do a little giveaway here. So leave a comment. Let us know how you're doing, what you're working on, questions, topic, suggestions for future episodes. You can email me or just drop a note right on YouTube, and I'll pick a handful of winners. Oh, I should probably set a deadline. What is today? Saturday? We'll do a week deadline here, and then I'll pick the winners. So by next Saturday, you have to give us something to work with. Also, special treat for people today. Bonus episode coming from Alex and I. We reviewed the latest Star Wars movie. So fair warning, there are spoilers, so do not watch that if you are interested in seeing the movie or haven't already seen it. That's just kind of a fun off-the-wall episode we decided to do. It's become something of a tradition for us now.
Star Wars.
Hating on the new Star. Yeah, we hated it. We absolutely hated it. So there's the spoiler of our spoiler. And yeah, hopefully this episode doesn't have any disgusting technical. It's been a rough content week for me. The episode I did on Friday, Philosophy Friday, the whole video got messed up, so I had to nix that one too. That one's on iTunes, by the way. So if people want to head over to the iTunes, you can hear the audio of it, but the video was... Anyway, people don't want to hear this. Good sir, thanks for joining me again. Gentle listener, please subscribe, like, comment, help support the show, share it with both of your friends, and we will catch you next time on The Pat Flynn Show.
Adios.